traffic was really bad. There were two major accidents, one on 40 and one at the top of Coe. And let me get this up. And what I'd like to do, big accident on the mountain. I'd just like to just take a minute and let's just bless those people and us and know that our travels today are safe and swift, and we get to where we are going in full capability of who we are. Thank you, and thank you for that. All right, so legacies. So what is a legacy? A legacy is something that's handed down from the past. It's something that can be inculturated or acculturated. It's a symbol of faith, right? A spiritual legacy, especially in New Thought. It's a symbol of faith. It's a part of who we are. It's something that's remembered by our family. It's something that's remembered by our friends. It's even remembered by people who don't like us so much. And at this time of year, though, throughout the fall and the first of the year, legacy is tossed around a lot in New Thought. They want us to commit to this giving program, often giving our money or leaving in some trust to our spiritual centers. This is not a bad thing. I absolutely believe in tithing, but I can pretty much guarantee you that just because you give a lot of money to your spiritual center, and while it might look good to your board of trustees, it's not necessarily going to get you into heaven. And so, but like I said, I do believe in tithing. I believe in giving your time and your energy and your money to your spiritual center. We absolutely need it in our spiritual centers. So it's not a bad thing. So please give of your time, give of your money, because it's money that counts, really. It's that symbol of energy that keeps us going. But today we're talking more about our spiritual legacy and what we leave behind. And this isn't only when we die. This is when we make a transition from us one city to another, or a spiritual center to another, or when we decide that a group of friends isn't benefiting us spiritually. We leave a legacy behind even in those situations, whether it's by choice or by conditions. In her book, Dream of a Common Language, Adrienne Rich asks this question. I ask myself and you, which of our visions will claim us? And which will we claim? And how will we go on living? I love those. I read this back in 1978, and those questions have always stayed with me. I don't always make the best choices around the answers, but they stay with me all the time. And so I think a spiritual legacy involves like 3 or 4 primary issues. What are we leaving behind? How do we want to be remembered? Who do we want to be now in our daily lives as we go forward? And how do we present? How do we show ourselves to others? Have you ever known someone who's a really big name? And it could be anybody. And you wonder, why does everybody love them? Right? And there's people that I know that others just love and honor, and I just can't get behind it. So I smile. Good people. You know, what is it? Is it their money? Is it their title? Is it how they present in the world? Is it what they do? Is it how they shake hands with someone? It's like, I wonder what that is. I've experienced several people like that in my life, and I still wonder, why do others love them when I didn't? And then it's, you know, vice versa. Why do people love me and others seriously don't? And I know they don't. I know people who just don't like me. And so I have personal wisdom council members, and they're not the same for everyone. And that's the same thing with other people in our lives. And the people in our lives change as we gain experience and just interact more with others and find out as we grow. What we do know is that history is rewritten by our memories. And the older we get, we often I should just keep on going. So sometimes it's aided by the news and social media, and sometimes it's aided by our friends who remember something differently. And the truth is, as we get older, we just remember things differently. Sometimes they're more acute, and sometimes they become more faded. And we tend to lessen the consequences of our previous choices. And we tend to justify our behaviors as time goes on. So in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have the 12 steps, which isn't a guide to staying sober per se, as much as it's a guide for living. And of those 12 steps, many of them deal with behaviors towards others and the consequences of your actions. And so to get clean and sober, someone is required to make amends at some point to people, and amends are not always successful. And I talk about this because in AA, part of what they're trying to do is clean up their spiritual legacy. And I have had people, when I've made an amend, literally turn their back on me and walk away. And I've had people just hug me and say, I don't even remember what you're talking about. And I love you anyway. But whatever, the big book says that we should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. Always remember, as God's people, we stand on our feet and we don't crawl before anyone. And this passage goes on to talk about the promises of life when we live with transparency and humility. And it says this: if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experiences can benefit others. And that uselessness, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will slip away. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in others. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us, and we will realize what God is doing through us, what we could not do for ourselves. And the reason I read that is because that's exactly what I'm talking about today. What is our spiritual legacy? Those promises seem grand, but they're really, really not. The truth is the point of making amends is not to rectify the wrongs that have been committed that we have done in our lives, as much as it is for recognizing that we have harmed someone and to take responsibility for that, whatever the result of that person is or happens. Just to come clean about our intent and our actions. This is new thought in itself. As we all know, Bill and Bob of the Big Book knew Ernest Holmes, and Ernest Holmes, knew the people from Unity. Bill, Carol, the Fillmores. And the Fillmores, everyone was taught by, we all know, Emily Curtis Hopkins. This is a quiz today. And then, they were all taught by Emily Curtis Hopkins, and that's who we get our primary faith from, or our primary thesis of what we do every day. So here again is the paradox of spirituality. If we're sincere in our approach and we go and we make amends, then what others think of us don't matter. So why are we so worried about our spiritual legacy? But what's the saying? What others think of me is none of my business. Well, that goes the other way too, right? What I think of others is none of their business. And so why do I keep talking about it? The goal is to continue to lead our lives in the best manner possible, to lead a life that we're proud of. We might be seeking acknowledgement or even forgiveness, but that's not the point. I read once, a very long time ago, I have no right to forgive you because I had no right to judge you in the first place. That's God's prerogative, not mine. And so the reason we make amends is to clean up our own lives and to be honest with ourselves. Some people will listen to this talk and bristle with antagonism. And as I've talked with others about what I was going to say, and when I'm writing this, they were like, what? That's not new thought. That's not science of mind. That's not spiritual science. And I disagree. I think that we find ourselves handicapped by often being obstinate, sensitive about what others think of us, and unreasonably prejudiced towards others. We look at human defects of people and sometimes use their own shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talk about intolerance while we're intolerant of ourselves and of others, and we miss the reality, say, of the beauty in the spirit of the forest because it might have clouded over or started to rain. We are not going through a harder or more difficult time than what has ever come before. There will always be challenges. There will always be political upheaval. There will always be war on some level. There will always be interpersonal conflicts with others. There's always been times in our personal lives that we have been lost in anger or grief because we believe someone else has caused us pain. Often this is exactly what we may have caused for others. And then we blamed them for our own misgivings. But through transparency, we can come out on the other side. If there is anything that keeps you up at night, or that you think about repeatedly, or some argument that just continues to take up space in your head, think of your role in the situation. Let that other person go, or talk to them and make an amend for your part in what transpired, and then let it go as best as you can. But don't make excuses for your behavior. Simply own it. And this is the hard part. There's no need to justify your behavior if you're being honest. If they want to know the why or the what, they'll ask. Right? Just say, I'm sorry for what I did, and let it go. There may be some wrongs, as they say, that you can never fully right, but don't worry about them if you say to yourself, you would honestly, if you could honestly make amends for them if you could. Some people aren't around, so write them a letter, maybe burn it, and if they're still alive, consider mailing it and then let it go. Be forthright and honest, but don't be shameful. That's the key. In an eagerness to be a better person, leave a legacy that you are proud of. Ernest Holmes, founder of Science Mind, says that when faced with a condition, we turn away from the condition in prayer, but we do not deny its existence. We pray and deal with the existence of what is happening in our lives or what we have done, facing the consequences we have set for ourselves. Much like the car accidents, we don't pray the car accidents away. We pray and treat for people who are there to be spiritually whole and to know exactly what they need to do in order to heal the best that they can. When we go to bed at night, or when we're meditating, ask yourself these questions. Did you agree to something that you really didn't want to do? You all know what that feels like. Did you have good boundaries today with other people? Were you resentful? Were you selfish? Were you dishonest, or were you afraid? Were you kind and loving throughout the day? And once you've completed this review at night, ask yourself, what could you have done better? What corrective measures should be taken for this nagging thought that's keeping you awake? Do you owe an apology to anyone? Mark Nepo in his book, Finding Inner Courage, asks this: why should we face ourselves? And answering his own question, he says that the self is the only opening through which we can know the stuff of life and how it makes up the world. That's why we need to face ourselves honestly. He goes on to say, what saves us from ourselves is the power of our own honest gaze, which remains a cleansing agent that can wash out whatever thickens within us and wash off whatever grows over us. I love that. I do, because it's exactly how I feel when I'm not in alignment with my spiritual program. It's exactly how I feel when I'm just not honest. That I feel like there's something wrong. I would like to wipe it off. You know, we go and we wipe our hands off if they're sticky. And that's what it feels like to me when I'm not being honest with myself and others. What happens is often that there's that unsettling feeling. Sometimes a kind of depression often follows that, and then anger follows that. And that anger gets projected outward. So think of self-reflection as a spiritual hygiene. Just as we wouldn't go more than a few days without washing or showering, I hope, that's my judgment. Don't go more than a few days without critical and honest self-reflection. Make it a habit. Holmes stated that a habit is a desire objectified. It's the continuous character of one's thoughts and feelings. It's a desire for something that will give us satisfaction. At the root of all habits is one basic thing: a desire to express life, regardless of what that habit might be. It's a desire to express life. So clean yourself up and express life in the best manner possible. Sometimes I wonder if those I've placed on my spiritual council would be proud of me. If I was brave, I might ask them. Some are still alive and some are not. Some are former academics, some are friends, some are spiritual leaders. I wonder if I've lived up to the expectation of their legacy, of what I perceived them to have shown me. I'll never know. Sometimes if I ask them, I might know, but for most of them, I will never know. The trick, though, is to be proud of our own legacy, to be kind and compassionate, listen well, and have faith. So clean up your past. As I've said earlier, some people will never forget or forgive. That's their prerogative. Some will never understand your motivation for out of the blue for this thing that has been bothering you for years to suddenly call them up and say, I'm sorry. Let those people go and surround yourself with a community such as this of people who love and support you. Make room for the future, and what you will leave is your legacy. If you leave here and move to a different city or go to another spiritual center, live your life fully, be honest with others, and be honest with yourself. Be generous and loving, and be the best you can be, and leave a legacy worth remembering. We can all do with less divisiveness in our lives, all of us. Stop rehashing those old agendas and make peace. Make peace in your soul. Create a life you are proud of, and then shine that light for others to follow. And remember that, as they say, we are all just walking each other home. Thank you.